All right, today we are talking about gradients. Gradients are, according to Wikipedia, a color gradient, sometimes called the color ramp or a color progression, specifies a range of position-dependent colors usually used to fill a region. The colors produced by a gradient vary continuously with position, producing smooth color transitions. So essentially, we're talking about transitions between different color values. And so rather than being a hard edged transition, it's a soft edge transition from one shade or saturation value or whatever to the next. So with our three measures of color, hue, saturation, and value or brightness or lightness, whichever one you want to call it, we're transitioning from one to the next. One common mistake that students make is they'll try to make this like psychedelic rainbow thingamajig of gradient, and that really serves no purpose and looks pretty garish and bad visually. So we're going to find out how and why we'd use gradients to make different things. And as we move towards making like a space game in game design, we're looking at how to use them to make planets and skies and other things. So you can see there's three different kinds of gradients here, or a few different kinds. This one's a transition from black to white, or from white to black, going from left to right. This one's curved. This one's more linear or straight. So we want to study how these work and what to use them for. So let's just go and make a new file. And I'm going to go ahead and start with 8.5 by, or 11 by 8.5. I'm going to go landscape on my orientation, and I'm going to go with inches. So 11 by 8.5. I got this by choosing print, and from print I chose letter, and from letter I chose inches. It doesn't really matter there actually, but I understand inches better when I'm measuring things. So create is the button off screen there. All right, so now we have a square, an empty space. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make 6 different squares. And one quick and easy way to make quick 6 equal squares is to use the effect panel. So distort and transform, transform, and the first one I'm going to make is going to be one copy, and I'm going to make them horizontally moving, and that wasn't far enough. So I want to use the distance of the object itself, which I can't see right now, and maybe I'll go to 2 or 3 inches apart. Not enough. Let's try 4 inches apart. So now I want to center them, which I could do in a minute, I guess. Let's try 4.5. That looks pretty good. And this gives us a quick and easy way to make them fit in exactly. And now we can choose, again, effect, distort, transform, transform. And so to get a few more of these, I'm going to apply a new effect. This time I'm going to go vertical, preview, and I'm going to get 2 more of these. So 2, move to the vertical like this. Let's move those apart by 2 inches. It gives us a nice space between. Now it's not centered, and we're not going to center it just yet. What we need to do first is in our layer panel observe that we have one shape. It's a rectangle, but it's been duplicated through this effect panel. So if you want to change the settings of that, of course, you go to Appearance, and here's a couple of transform effects applied, and if you click on one of them, you can change the values. I'm going to go and go with this for now, and I'm going to choose Object and Expand Appearance. Now observing my rectangle, my layer panel, I have a rectangle with 3 groups in it. So I'm going to choose one, yeah, that's the whole group. So if I choose the whole group, now I can easily use the window and align panel. Where's my align panel? There it is. And I'm going to set the alignment to middle of the stage. It didn't move because the alignment's probably set to something else. I don't see my control panel, so window control. So here I can find align, same panel, but it has how I can choose. So I'm going to align these to the artboard. So you want to align these to the artboard. Don't forget to put your name on it. Now, these are still grouped. So I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to choose window. Nope, let's choose object, ungroup. So I want to get to where I have all of them are not groups anymore. So object and ungroup again. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They should be individually selectable. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to practice how to make gradients in each shape. So we're going to do one at a time. So we're going to do some repetition, repetitive learning, to get our way towards mastery of this concept. Now in the tool panel, down here where the colors are, you'll see it's actually, we know it's got white fill and black stroke, but it's 2 separate objects. So I'm going to just reset this. In fact, I can do that for all these. So white stroke, white fill, black stroke. So there's a button down here, right there, that says default fill and stroke. There you go. Now what I'm going to do is select this one, and I'm going to choose gradient right here. So this is a solid color, this is a gradient, and I want to make sure I have the fill selected, not the stroke. Choose the fill. Gradient, there it is. Now I made a gradient. That's pretty exciting. So what you can do with this is you can actually adjust the midpoint of the gradient to favor one color or the other, and you can also change the colors. So if I double click on this, and it says black and there's nothing there, and I'm like, what? I want more colors. There's a little menu right here. Choose the menu and choose HSB. HSB stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. So as I move this up, hopefully I can get that back. I want to make sure we can see that. There we go, hue, saturation, and brightness. So CMYK, HSB, different color measures. Let me bring my brightness up, and that'll give me more measures of saturation and stuff. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to set this up so we have the same hue, which will be like 225, and that falls somewhere in the blue range. And you can slide this back and forth. Let me set the saturation for the first point to 100, and let's set the brightness also to 0. Oh, that's black. That's darkness. Oops, I got back to CMYK. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and they're measures used by printers. So let's get the brightness all the way up. Let's get the saturation all the way up. So now we're going to show a transition between full saturation, full brightness to something else. Let's go to this other choice here. So this was 2. Let's set that at 225. There we go. So I'm going to use 225 as my hue. Open this one up. Again, I got to go to HSB. So 225 is my hue. Let's get my brightness, my saturation adjusted. So if I reduce the saturation, we get closer to gray. And if I reduce the brightness, we get closer to black. So for now, let's go with 50-ish on the brightness, and the saturation down somewhere like 25. So what you're doing is you're studying how do I reduce the intensity or emphasis on the color. So how you use color really determines how emphasized an object is. So let's take the same thing. Let's go through that again. So we're going to choose the gradient down here. I guess that's the gradient we just picked. So it'll use the same gradient we just made. And what I want to do with this one is change it from linear to radial. So what that does, you can see it fades to the middle. And I want to work a little more intensity in this. So I'm going to choose this color here, and I'm going to set that back in HSB and just go darker. And I can even switch those two. So if I want to switch this, I'll put the bright one in the middle, and I sort of accidentally made another color stop. So what you'll find is if you click, 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 you can add color stops, and you can drag them out. That's how this thing works. And you can, of course, adjust the midpoint to get which one. Now what's even better, we'll show you in the next one. Let's choose the next piece here, and let's choose that gradient again that we just made. And now we're going to work with some other measures of our radial, or it also works with linear gradient. So let's set this to, this value here is the aspect ratio. Yep, it is. And if I change that, it essentially changes this to fit the shape of the thing better. I can also rotate that. So there's 90, negative 60, so it changes the way that it orients itself within the shape. So I want to see that from you next. So that we're now, come back to this one. Let's go back to here. So we got the same gradient we just made. Lost my gradient panel. Such a mess. When things get crazy and I can't find stuff and everything's just piled up, I like to choose Essentials up here. This is, you can't see it. Let's go Essentials, and I'm going to choose Reset Essentials. It puts away all my other palettes, and it's like cleaning up my desktop. And now I'm going to go back to Gradient. Okay. So now you'll see in the window menu that gradient is checked, which means it's open somewhere. So if you can't find a panel, you don't know where it is, see if it's open first and see if you like stashed it underneath another panel somewhere. So here's this again. I've got this radial gradient. It's oriented to 30 degrees, minus 30 degrees, but the aspect ratio is still 100. What I'm going to do is change this one back to linear. So now I can take the angle. Notice the aspect ratio is gone because it's linear-ish. And if I adjust this, I can see sort of which way it rolls. There's the bell, and they're off. So I'm going to take this and adjust that, and it's real time. It views itself. It shows me exactly the results right now. Okay, so there's no more messing around with different setups. Now the next one I'm going to make is going to be a multicolor gradient. So in this case, let's just restart this as a gradient, and we can actually open this, and there's presets in here. So orange and yellow is fun to work with, nice sunset looking colors. Fading sky is in there, white and black. So I'm going to start with white and black, and with this one we're going to add multiple color stops. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So now with each of these colors, I'm going to have to open up my HSB. Now you could use CMYK, but for crying out loud, I have no idea how to mix those colors. So I use HSB. I'm going to build from there, and let's just get a brightness and saturation that actually shows us something. So there's a blue in there. Let's change from blue to what's opposite blue? Orange. So orange is opposite blue. So I'm going to its complement. Use saturation, brightness, bring up the saturation, bring up the brightness, and orange is over here somewhere. There we go. So now we got that one, and then we got this. So we can bring this back to blue if we want, or let's go analogous on this one. Let's just say change to yellow. So we can use full on yellow here. That gives us a work, and I can take these and adjust the position of the color stop to strengthen one band or the other. That makes it a lot easier to work with. Okay, so instead of making multiple color stops, you just adjust the position of the color stops. I think you can add those in there also. Nope, you can't. They just slide around between. So let me choose this color here, and we're going to open that up again. This time we're going to go back to HSB, and I'm going to work with green here. And this is a garish and horrible color scheme that I would not recommend, but just leave the black at the end. But let's close that off or bring more of it in. There we go. So you can work with these colors, the gradient sliders up here, the color sliders down here, and the locations are all, each color stop has its own settings. So each color stop has a color assigned to it. It has an opacity level, which we'll talk about later. The location is what percent along the way of the gradient is it going to build. So each setting is working, and you can rotate this thing as you see fit. So that looks pretty horrible, frankly. And we want to find out why we'd use these. And again, we're building towards this planet thing. So that's what we're trying to get towards. So we want to get to be able to control these. Now before I move on too far, I should show you the gradient tool. This is the gradient tool, and if I click on this, what happens is sometimes nothing. Why can't it work? So click on one of these. If I select a color and I click the gradient panel, the gradient tool, usually what that allows me to do is adjust the gradient. So as you have this piece in there, it lets you reposition the gradient, sort of draw with that piece, and usually we're going to find a position in there that's got that slider in there. Let's adjust this. So usually you will find the actual piece to control that with, and it allows us to work with it sort of real time or directly, which we'll get to next time. So your job is to make 6 panels of gradients using linear and radial and rotate and other things. So try the things out that I did, follow along, and make sure you post 6 different examples of gradients. And for now, just do 2 color gradients except for one where I want you to mix up some other gradients. Okay, so just build these up. Oops, wanted to select that and add a gradient and change something up. And you could just pick one of these existing. If there's a preset in there, looks nice. All right, that's a nice sunset gradient. I'm going to flip that 90 degrees. I think that's what I wanted. So try those out. Export a PNG and turn that thing in. Okay, rock on, have some fun. Thanks for watching.